Mike Richards. Brought to you by Bell Lifestyle Products. Also streaming live on saga960.ca. And now, from the Bell Lifestyle Studio, here's Mike and Dave.
It is 8:01 News Talk, Saga 960 Raw. Mike Richards. Speaking of our friends at Bell Lifestyle Products, we will be talking to one of the many guests that we're able to get on the show. And this is going to be very timely, as you know. Yes, they are our title sponsor. They're the sponsor of our studio when we're in it. But one of the great things about having them as sponsors is almost everything people are dealing with right now, and some of the concerns, they are literally experts in that field. So we'll talk to David Park. David has, and his family's been around and since 1994, I believe. And they have the company called Nutrition House. Now, the one here in Mississauga, one of them, is that big one at Square One, Mississauga, which is a very busy store, Dave. And a lot of topics that David will be talking about, including sleep disruption, and a lot of people going through that, stress eating, obviously general health, but just the things like, being in front of a screen, excess screen time, which we're all doing. And then there's a lot of people who are dealing with anxiety, the stress, and the fatigue that brings on. So there's a lot of things he can talk about, Dave, because basically all the things I mentioned, there's a vast majority, even those of us either working it or listening to this show, have at least a couple of those.
Oh, absolutely. People are wondering, what should I do? What should I take? What should I be eating? And of course, we've already talked about our watches on TV and stuff like that. I kind of limit it to the night only. I don't watch during the day. The TV isn't on for most of the day, to tell you the honest truth. I sometimes will turn it on over the lunch hour just to see any kind of updates or anything of that nature. But for the most part, been pretty good television-wise. And then once 8 o'clock comes by, it's probably a solid 2 hours of it, and then a little bit of shutdown, and then bedtime, right? I want to be able to wake up, right? So I don't go to bed at 1 anymore, right? So
we've got, once again, courtesy of our friends at Bell Lifestyle Products, David Park. So they are owners of Nutrition House, and they've been doing this for quite some time. In fact, I think probably closer to 30 years. So let's bring on David Park right now. Good morning, David.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Well, we're I would say fantastic, but that would be a lie. I don't think anyone's fantastic right now, and there are certainly challenges. But I'm just curious, David. So you're a family-run business. How long have you guys been doing this as a family?
My parents opened the third Nutrition House back in 1994, so I was about 17 years old at that time, 17, 18 years old. Yeah, and so it was way back when.
So you kind of inherited this. Now this is something that when you start talking about natural health products, it's come, at least in my mind, a long way in that I am sure at some point people would think you're borderline witch doctors or shaman. I don't even know what the word would be, to the point where it is massively important and almost to a degree, I would say it's very common. It's commonplace, and thus the stores like in Square One, which must be incredibly busy. But in times like this, where people are unsure about what they're supposed to do, so how do you actually find business? We assume that you would be busy, but what is the actual impact for you guys?
It's a good question, because during these times, of course, it's much different from any other time that we've had before. And when I look out, when I'm working in the store, when I look out in the hallways, every store is closed. And I've seen this before, whether it's maybe snowstorms, ice storms, or power outages, but never ever like this, where malls are pretty empty. But you'll see some people, some of our customers that have been loyal for the many years, still come into our store, look for those needed necessity type products, things that build the immune system, things that fortify themselves, and they feel that this is important, because you don't really get these sort of nutrients and fortifying ingredients always in your grocery stores.
No, you certainly don't, David. Good morning to you. Great talking to you. I know some of the things we deal with in a time like this, and of course, we're not overly experienced in this, just because it hasn't really happened to this extent and for this long, and it continues to be. Stress eating is a big factor. General health and so forth. What are some recommendations in these kind of situations, especially the stress eating? In these tough times.
I mean, even myself, like I'm looking in the freezer from time to time, seeing if there's any ice cream. Comfort food. Comfort food is definitely, right beside us all the time. But what I like to do is, I like to make myself popcorn from time to time. From scratch. I get my organic kernels. I throw in some coconut oil. I heat it up, ready popcorn in about 5 minutes, not even, and then I add the Himalayan sea salt. It's a great snack, and if you add the coconut oil, you get pretty full from it as well. So, popcorn is a great snack that you can kind of munch on and take the time away. Okay?
Well, the one thing too. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, David.
No, I was gonna say, some of us always they reach for the soda pop or like the juice here and there. Those things will drive up your sugar levels like no tomorrow. It's hard. So I mean, there's so many different herbal teas out there that we could, some of us don't like the herbal teas, but we can always have, it's always good to play around with a few different herbs here and there from different countries of the world. We have access to so many of these things, so we should try to, kind of experiment with the vast majority of so many different tastes that we have available.
Well, that is certainly a big part of it. You just mentioned sugar levels, all kinds of different things. It's all sort of related, once again, to sort of anxiety and stress, and so that brings on fatigue, but that doesn't necessarily mean all of a sudden you're having great sleeps. In fact, it's probably the opposite, where you have some really huge disruptions in sleep patterns. So for those listening here this morning, and maybe for some sleep isn't great anyway, what are some of the things that you just mentioned, some teas? What are the kinds of products would you recommend at this time to have a better sleep?
Well, there's a few different things that we could do. I mean, we could limit our exposure to the artificial blue light that we always get. Like you'll see anytime my kids, I got two young boys, if they're on the iPad or on my phone, I always get them to get the blue light glasses on. They've got these little small, cute blue light glasses that filter the blue light that we get from the radiating devices that we get, and it's very, very irritating for the eyes. If they're not wearing these glasses, they are wound up after 30 minutes of looking at the computer screen or the tablet screen, and they cannot go to bed at all. So, with regard to the teas, I mean, from time to time I give my children teas as well. But Bell Lifestyle, they've got a really good product called Sleep and Relax Tea. It's a blend of herbal ingredients, no caffeine. They use things like chamomile, linden flower, valerian, not too much valerian because it does smell a little bit, passion flower, and it's very calming, very relaxing. Right? So these kind of herbal blends are so beneficial, especially for the sleep that we sorely need.
It's interesting you say that, because I have actually, and I'm not a tea drinker. I've never had a coffee in my life, but I've never really had much tea either. But I have started taking the Sleep Relax tea from Bell Lifestyles, and it's everything you just said there.
Do you normally drink it in the evening?
That's exactly when I drink it. I drink it around 7 o'clock, so I'm usually in bed before 11ish, so 10:30, 11. So I give it some time to work through the system if I can, and it does kind of calm you down. I was telling an earlier guest, David, that my television time is usually in the evening. I don't have the TV on during the day. I have two small girls here, so I'm kind of like you. I try to limit the TV production during the day. They watch a little bit during lunch, but that's about it. So, but I find the tea is just phenomenal.
Yeah, I don't know if you sweeten it at all with honey or sugar.
I don't.
Good.
I don't, just because I just do exactly. But you're right. It would taste really nice with a little bit of honey. Maybe that's a good idea. Maybe I should do that tonight. But I haven't put anything extra in it at all.
That's good. I think having it just plain, you kind of appreciate the taste of the herbs in its natural state. And I've even heard of some people, after using the tea bag, dry out the tea leaves, and then you can even add it to your foods from time to time, depending on the tea bag companies, right? Depending on which company it is. Right?
Yeah.
Well, David, the other thing too, which is obviously on people's minds, is their own immune system. It's the one thing that people kind of, whether they watch the news or it just seems to be generally almost a fear that maybe your body isn't strong enough, and maybe if you're not getting it, and it's in a lot of these things you can get if you have the right diet. A lot of people don't eat that way. A lot of people don't do themselves a favor by their diet. So we talk about things like an immune booster. Now, in terms of the Bell Lifestyle products, if and again, we're not claiming that it stops getting COVID-19 or that it is a deterrent or any of those things. We're just talking about your own personal body. What would you suggest in boosting your immune system?
Well, we as humans, I mean, we're always eating breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks in between, right? So there's plenty of food. I mean, we go to the kitchen, we don't think there's food there. There's actually a lot of food there. We often overeat. Even myself, like I've packed on pounds, but I could probably utilize some of these, these stored calories, or FAT, what they call it. It's very, very difficult to access some of these stored calories. So with regards to our immune system, I mean, when you think about it, like let's say you get a fever or a flu, or you come down with something, the last thing you might want to think of is a buffet. You don't want to indulge in a buffet when you're really, really sick. So what I like to do is actually fasting, techniques of fasting where not fasting for like days upon days, but intermittent fasting is getting pretty popular right now. But as the body, as we start limiting our food intake and stopping what comes into our mouths all the time, kind of relax and settle down the body. I mean, as adults, we're not in that growing phase like our children are. We've got to limit the amount of growth that's happening to us. And as we hit into the fasting hours of 10, 11, 12, 15, 16 hours, our body starts getting into that healing phase. And that's when supplements really start kicking in and really start working well.
I wanted to ask you one last question, David. I know you and I were texting about this over the weekend. I've started using apple cider vinegar off a recommendation from a friend of mine that is in your industry. What are your pros and cons with it? I have a little, almost like a teaspoon of it mixed in with a little bit of water in the morning just to kind of start my day that way, because it empty stomach and so forth. I'm just wondering what your thoughts and experiences have been with apple cider vinegar.
Apple cider vinegar, the first time I ever used it was back in my early 20s. I wanted to lose some weight. What I first noticed is when I started drinking it, I hated the taste.
Yeah.
It was god-awful disgusting. What I resorted to was capsules. So I started taking this one brand, and the apple cider vinegar. What I first noticed was my bowel movements, my regularity was off the charts. Like I was eliminating like I wasn't before. And this is when I was in my 20s, when I was pretty regular, where I didn't really notice anything like, compacted or anything like that. But with the apple cider vinegar, I noticed that when I was working out, I was sweating a lot more. What I noticed also was, again, number two was a lot more fulfilling, and I felt a lot more fresher. Now, as I enter my mid-40s, I'm similar to you, David. I'm not sure about you, Michael, but I'm drinking apple cider regularly, first thing in the morning.
Yep.
It'll help kickstart the digestion. It'll help create the digestive juices flowing for the rest of the day. And typically our stomach needs the strong acid because it's an organ where it creates a lot of acid, but as we get a little older, we don't have that production of acid. So that's why we can't, you don't see grandmothers, grandfathers hoarding these T-bone steaks and potatoes. They can't digest these. So apple cider vinegar, it really helps, even though it tastes pretty bad. And for those who have acid reflux, they have to be really careful because they don't want to ruin the esophageal lining. They don't want to hurt their throats and their upper stomachs because the apple cider vinegar, it is pretty acidic, but adding just a small teaspoon like what you do, David, is beneficial. Or even adding to your salads,
Yes.
right? Splashing it over your foods from time to time. Getting that apple cider is actually quite beneficial, and I would say there's so many more pros and cons. You just have to slowly get into it, little by little by little.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I would say it tastes awful, but it works. But I think that's been taken. I think you may want to stay away from that. Now, David, just people who are listening here this morning probably need to know. So if they want to get some of these products, and if it's like brick and mortar stores right now, if they want to get something from Nutrition House, how are they doing that these days?
Well, I appreciate that. Now's the time for the plug. So, Square One Shopping Center is closed. When you go to the Square One website, you'll see that it is closed. But when you scroll down, you'll see that there is some essential stores that are open. Nutrition House, being an essential store, we are open. We're regularly getting phone calls to our store, and we're receiving calls. People can come into Square One, not through any entrance, but only the most northern entrance of the mall, which is across from the bus terminal, entrance 7. And there's a security guard there asking you a couple questions, whether you lied out to the country, whether you have anyone home that's sick. So entrance 7, and then we're on the lower level. We're right near EB Games and Baskin Robbins, our friends down the hall. Yeah.
Well, and again, it's one of those things where people, again, they wonder about, how to get these things, where to get them. So we appreciate that you joined us here this morning, and hopefully, I'm hoping in the near future, who knows, but we can get you into the studio, have you on the show again, because I thought today was really interesting.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I would give you guys I know you don't drink coffee, David, but I don't know about you, Mike, but I've got this really good coffee formula, like this little kickstart coffee formula, which is great. But with regards to the seniors in the community and those people that are staying at home like we should, we also have opened up free delivery to the city, to the community as well. So
very good.
Those people that are home stuck, that cannot go out, that need their essential vitamins, minerals, immune boosters, teas, what have you. I'm working a little bit more these days, so I'm traveling to the different parts of the city and dropping off those essential nutrients that people need. So, give us a call. You can find us. And, we're here for the community.
Great job. That is a great job. Hey, David, thanks so much for this morning. Again, we'll catch up with you again real soon, but thanks for joining us here today.
Thanks, David.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, David. Take care, guys.
You
Stay
too.
safe.